Paul Wafula. My name is more known than myself because I'm a mtu wa magazeti. I know Twalib is a good man because he started taking notes. I hope he'll take a few this afternoon. I was driving down from Karen last week, and I go to the roundabout. I went to meet a source. I live in very far away from from those areas because of what they represent. Sorry about that. It was past curfew hours, so I had finished my assignment and I was on my way back home. We have the current police station at some point where there's always a roadblock. And when I arrived there, I showed my badge and I was led to pass. While I was trying to maneuver through the road, I mean the stamps that stop people from moving, somebody else was trying to run away from the police station. Was driving very fast, so he wanted to use me as a cover so that he also gets out. So he bumped into me at the back. And so I parked and waited to be assisted by the policeman. What had happened is that on this day, this gentleman had already broken the law. He was drunk, secondly. He was out at the wrong time. And he had caused an accident because he had bribed the cops of that station to allow him to exit. And so I asked the officer who was in charge, I said, first, this guy is drunk, and if he had been kept in, he may not have caused this accident, right? And so while we were still having a discussion, I was asked to go in and sort of record a statement. And so because it's at night and nobody will see that you're a journalist, I found about more than 30 people who had been arrested that evening. They were not being arrested because they were not booked. They were just being held around the station. And so because their vehicles had been towed and put aside, they were negotiating with them, the cops were negotiating with them the fee to drop them at their home. So they were using the police Land Cruiser, the police vehicle on that day. You pay some amount, and they were quoting as high as 5,000 depending on where you're going. They'll bundle you at the back and drop you. And of course, tomorrow we'll come and pay the towing charges, 5,000 flat rate to whatever the station, no booking, and everybody's happy. So I was just thinking about that, and I was wondering. So, of course, I was never assisted because the guy who had already who knocked me had already paid a bribe, and he had already been sorted. So I was already on the weak side of it, and it was at night. I was tired. I went back and recorded the statement. I still have a statement there, but nobody has acted on it. So it got me thinking about our values and what we really do. And I know Twalib will not want me to talk about COVID so much because he's investigating. But when we got the story about COVID millionaires, and first the Global Fund and USAID had done their own audits before even COVID, and they were uncomfortable with the procurement system at KEMSA. And this report had been shared with the Ministry of Health. And they're trying to get the Ministry of Health to sit down with them and just discuss the findings. They had done a joint report, and it's available. I'm sure anyone who wants to find it can see it. They had already pointed out the gaps in the procurement, and the ministry was not cooperating in terms of just giving them a hearing so that they can be able to see how do we close these gaps so that we can continue funding. And this is about 100 billion that they're giving Kenya to fund tuberculosis, malaria, and everything else. And nobody is listening to them. And they're saying, if we don't do this, then we will try to find other alternatives of procurement. And these are the reasons. You see, an instrument trolley in Kenya, which goes for about 15,000, was being bought at 269,000. An electric kettle, the one we know, that will be found generally on the higher side at 15,000 at the market rates because of government procurement, was being bought at 1.2 million. A baby cot that you'll find 25,000 on the higher side if you're shopping in Karen and elsewhere. For the rest of us, we'll find them maybe at 5,000 or less, because we know where they come from, was being sold at 1.4 million. And it's in the public domain. This information is in the Senate today, and everyone who wants to know it can actually find it. And they're asking, surely, your budget is 20% of the health kit. We are giving you 80% of everything, but you are stealing from us. Why can't you even just look at meds, which is a parallel? I think a Christian, I was hoping that the Archbishop would be here because he knows this meds place. They're actually the medical, also the KEMSA version of the churches that buys for. And their prices were like, a half or less on what we are buying. And there's some things that were actually, were 9 times more expensive. And this is a system that is supposed to actually procure things at a cheaper price. So I got interested, and when we first got the report, and I tried to get a comment from KEMSA, of course the first thing they said is that I'm out of depth, and 2, that the story will not see the light of day. I was surprised about that, so I said, let me attempt and see if it will see the light of day. And when I'm convinced about a story, those I've worked with know that I will make sure it's published. If it's not published by the paper I write for, I'll publish it in the UK or elsewhere. So if it's a public story, interest story, we will have to publish it. So I got it, and I had a very good support from my editors, and the story went, and it was published. And so these guys got confidence and said, if this story is being published, then we'll have a sitting. And that's how we're able to get the documents about KEMSA. And they were saying, look, if you allow these guys to do the same things, using the same systems, we'll end up with all this theft, because the system is just meant to steal. Yeah? So you just have to close those gaps. And so up to like 3 weeks ago, we still had people walking around Nation Center with bags of money. And this is what makes me ask this question. Are we serious about corruption? Because the DCI today in Kenya, they're extortionists. We have some of their officers who, once they know that there's a corruption case going on, they will always be on you as a suspect, get as much money as possible from you in the name of helping you. And when things are now, they are sure they have eaten you properly, they will drag you in court. So these are the guys who are supposed to be investigating. I may not have very nice things to say about EACC today, because many times we've had a good relationship, but it's very, you think that you are fighting from a different side, yet you're on the same side. Getting some information from the EACC is not as easy as we would expect in such an environment with a very progressive constitution. The best you can get, and we have a gentleman there who works very hard to ensure that at least it gives us something that we can run with. But EACC is wired to mostly close itself in. So as a journalist, I have information. I've spoken to enough people. I know EACC has this and it's going on, and I just need a verification so that we fight on the same side. I know you'll tell me that we are investigating the same way Mumias was stolen about 7 years ago. I'm still in court with one of the suspects, and we are still investigating. We read the story like 7 years ago, and the same responses I got from EACC up to now, there's still an investigation, right? This morning Churchill knows we got a letter that has stopped us from mentioning some company, one of the big beneficiaries, actually the biggest beneficiary of the COVID millionaires, because these are the people who bought all these things from wherever they got. They had a lot of connections from China, and they brought them here, in plane loads, and they are the ones who are supplying to the small companies that were getting. Your job was to run to whichever county or whichever agency, get the deal, and then come to them. They're the ones who are supplying. If you look at most of those things that they were supplying, they are almost the same. They supplied most of the ventilators that we have at the prices that we are talking about. And they stopped us from writing about them. And so Churchill and I were struggling, how do we pull down what we have already written? Because we it's something that's in the public domain, and we're hoping that by this time, the EACC will have moved slightly faster. And this is the last question I wanted to ask, Bwana Twalib. We had Chicken Gate. If you followed Chicken Gate, I'm not sure anyone in Kenya has been charged seriously and is in jail for it. The speed at which we were able to bring them down, I'm not so sure. I know we got some money that was refunded from the UK. I know the story about Acacias. I sat through a court process in the UK. I know we are not the same. UK is quite advanced, so I will not compare ourselves to them. But at least we can learn a few things from them. They put Ketan on trial, and they sat through, and in a week, he was given 8 years. What I always wonder is, why do we take somebody through the revolving door and then charge them and then ask for time to investigate? Why don't we, why don't we get somebody when we are ready? Yeah, I know this is some of it is for you, some of it is for the other investigative agencies. And I don't want to personalize it, because the fight against corruption is wider. is wider. But I mean, the puzzle for me is, before we actually go that route of somebody coming through when they are not doing the of course the witness statements. When we charge somebody, why don't we progress? Why don't we, go slightly above that? The last thing I wanted to ask is, there's a company, because this one I'll mention it, because we have not stopped. Ziwana Limited is owned by Samantha Ngina Mudhama. We wrote it. And also called, the shareholder is June Duta Kinywa. I didn't find a lot of difficulties in knowing who these people are. I didn't struggle to get the documents from the company registry about these guys, who they are, when the company was registered, the fact that they don't, some of these companies that were named in the COVID billionaires, the fact that some of them were registered just a month or 2 months before, after March, and they got all these big tenders. At what point do we go high up? At what point do we go high up so that we leave the Kafuras of this world, the money movers? At what point do we really go up and get some big fish? I know we have Waluke, and I'm happy for that. But how high can we go? Right? Especially in Afya House. Because this is really, this is health. Let them steal money from roads. Let us do away with it. Let us say we can allow that. But surely, health. The president made another announcement recently. This is like the 4th time. He said that we should allow people to, all the tenders at the Ministry of Health, including KEMSA, should be on the portal. This is not the first time. This is he's announcing it. I can bet that at end of the month, we are 2 days or 3 days to that deadline. Nothing will have happened, and Kenyans will move on. Right? When MPs said that we cannot declare wealth, I know it was a legal issue, and this helps us to know really who is accumulating this wealth as faster than the others. Did EACC just give up with it? Did we challenge this? Did we really understand the importance of this in the Constitution in terms of, because if Kenyans see that you're not going after the real guys on the top, that's why this copy in Karen will be happy to take that bribe. If they see that the real guys, these are the policemen who are driving the MPs, the politicians, the minister's child, and they are stealing, walking around with briefcases of money. Why would they not be also beneficiaries of that loot? Because we have governors that we know in this country who have stolen, right? But there are legal challenges, I know. But Kenyans want to see something beyond that. So you might say that the media is not supporting the fight against corruption. It is making EACC look like they are not doing so well, or they are not on that side. But there's a public, court, where we want to see, are you doing more than just protecting some people or fighting wars between politicians? Because all these people are known. So the last thing I just wanted to point out is that, can we be partners, media and EACC? How do we work together? How do we remove this wall that when we are very close, we look like we are fighting for different teams? I know you will say some of the things that, because this is a press club, I'm allowed to go slightly beyond that. I know you will say your hands are tied and so on and so forth, but we have seen people work within the laws that exist, within the, using the instruments that they find themselves, that they can be able to use and manipulate, and they've delivered some solid results, right? Are we saying as EACC this is our best? Are we saying there's some room for improvement? I'm not saying that journalists have been very good, because, we have also been bribed. Yeah? We have also been on the tech, just like EACC has quite some bags of money that they have received, some of the detectives. And that's the country we live in. But can we say that there's something we can do beyond this, right? So I want to hear, just like my members, how can we partner? How do we know that EACC is really on the real side of fighting corruption and not razzmatazz, revolving doors, cameras, guys come take pictures, we are arresting so-and-so, come so-and-so, we are taking them to court, come, and then once the pictures are taken, that's the end of it. Come, whatever. We are there as journalists, we are there just to come and help you meet some KPIs. You have arrested some people. Can we go beyond that? Thank you so much.